welcome to another episode of BTC Sportsline. Last we saw you, the NFL season was just about to be underway, and now we are more than a quarter of the way through and heading into the 6th week. But we at Sportsline have not missed a beat. Myself and Ray are back to go over this last week's matchups, our concerns and predictions going further into the season, as well as how college football's top teams survived this weekend. Later, we'll be bringing out Michael Buchanan, a former guest of the show, for a more in-depth look into the Pac-12 and what we like to call, well, the rest of college ball. But now, we're here to talk about the NFL. So, Ray, the Seahawks had a bye week this week, so unfortunately we get to see them play. But even with that, we were able to move up in our division and claim first place. So, thank you, Bills.
Yeah, it's really nice to not even go in, not have to work, and you get promoted on that day. It's really a pleasant feeling as a Seahawks fan, that's for sure. The Bills are playing really good, so that they've been actually taking out some good teams.
They dropped the first two and picked up the next three. So.
Yeah, well, you know, going into New England and shutting them out is a pretty dramatic thing. So
even with the third-string quarterback, shutting them out at home was a statement, I think.
Yeah, they've been surprising. New England's been surprising, just being able to still be contenders without having Tom Brady there. So it's been impressive so far this season.
And speaking of that, Brady's back and with a vengeance. I think he had 406 yards in the game. Martellus Bennett had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, they're dangerous. That's all there is to it. The New England Patriots with Tom Brady are going to be a prolific offense for the remainder of the season. They might run into trouble when they play teams like Seattle because they got a great defense, a Minnesota team. It's going to be hard to really stop that animal. They got 2 tight ends that are monsters on the field.
Yeah, Gronk's back as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a monster game as well as Martellus Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, Bennett's a new addition to the team, and, you know, Brady and him somehow have chemistry already, which is pretty impressive. And between the two of them, they're just going to be running up the seam route and catching the ball all day long, and it's going to be a dangerous thing for most teams that are facing it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, their division, I think, is kind of weak, you know, in itself. That's why they seem to win the division every year. The Dolphins just look like a sorry team this year. I mean, completely sorry.
They're pretty bad. They're not as bad as the Browns. I mean, the Browns are probably going to go
right
0-16 at this
point.
I mean, it's pretty bad. But, yeah, Miami's looked awful. I mean, just bad. But, you know, maybe we can get some fantasy production out of one of the players in there.
I don't know who that would be, but that's a different segment. The Titans looked good against them. I mean, I don't know how much that says about the Titans, but Marcus Mariota had a great game. Yeah,
Mariota was a star last week, actually. He's showed some of his potential. Again, it's against a subpar team, but at the same time, he's playing very, very well. DeMarco Murray ran for a lot of yards. He's playing lights out as well. They looked like a good team against them, but again, it's to the level of your competition. So you may look like a great team this week, but then next week they'll falter. Actually, they should probably do good next week too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Titans are another one of those questionable teams. There was a lot of good games this week, and there was a lot of bad games, though, too. I think the Cards and the Niners kind of falls into a bad game. I mean, that's a game that shows why the NFL protects quarterbacks so much, because neither team has a quarterback, and the game is garbage.
Well, the Niners have like 3 quarterbacks that are all bad.
Speaking of, breaking news. Colin Kaepernick is the Niners' starting quarterback now.
It was inevitable. I mean, Blaine Gabbert was so bad. I mean, Colin Kaepernick, yeah, he's got some serious emotional issues, and I think that's going to be a big thing for him throughout, or the remainder of the season. But, his last performance as a starting quarterback was bad, and he was hit a lot. So now he's going to come back into the field, and he's now taking the reins over again. Chip Kelly said, I never said I wouldn't start Kaepernick. No one in the organization told me I shouldn't. And he's like, but now at this point, I mean, every single news broadcast out there with sports is telling him, you got to start Kaepernick at this point.
I mean, the fans were chanting for Kaepernick in the last game. That's how badly they want him out there. But he's going to panic. He's going to go through his first read. He's not going to get it, and he's going to throw an interception, or he's going to try to make a play on his feet. I mean, it's going to be the same old Kaepernick.
Which is like one of the craziest things ever, because like going from being in the Super Bowl and being in the NFC Championship game to now just being a guy on the bench that doesn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Like, that's who this guy is nowadays.
The Pledge of Allegiance?
Or not the Pledge of Allegiance. National
When did they start doing that?
Sorry, I went back to 3rd grade real quick there.
Okay, yeah, that would be new. Another breaking news segment there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's amazing how far down the organization has gone. I mean, they were just like a contender every single year for going to the Super Bowl
like
essentially.
3 years.
Well,
I mean, they're
3
kind of
years
back
consecutively.
where they
went to the Super
belong,
Bowl
in
and
my
2
opinion.
NFC championship games. I mean, it's a really big deal, and now they're just sorry. I mean, their whole team quit on them. They either retired early or requested to be traded or maybe faked injuries and
not play.
just so they didn't have to play for that team. They got rid of their best coach they've had in a long, long time in Harbaugh. I don't like Harbaugh, but they got rid of him.
He wins everywhere he goes. I mean, that's it, bottom line.
It's pretty hard to win at Michigan.
He's a winner. Well, another team that's sorry is, I think we mentioned, is the Browns. That's another team, though, that seems to have players that just don't want to play for them. Freaking Josh Gordon is going into rehab now, which is great. Get your life in order. You know, I'm all for that. But really, like, is it because he wants it, or is it because he doesn't want to play for the Browns? Let's just be real.
Well, he's going to rehab for marijuana, so that's pretty bad. I mean, for him to have to quit football to do that is pretty intense.
I think he
It's
just
something
doesn't
that's
want to play
legal
for the
in
Browns.
a lot of states.
I think it's just because he doesn't want to play for the Browns.
I wouldn't want to play for the Browns either. It'd be nice to collect my paycheck, but I wouldn't want to play for the Browns either.
Yeah, so let's see. Any other matchups that jump out to you? I think the Falcons and the Broncos was a big one.
Falcons-Broncos was a really good game. It could have been better, but you're basically your classic offense versus defense. And to give the Falcons credit, like a lot of people didn't think that they'd actually be able to beat the Broncos because the Broncos defense is so good. And they actually came out and they played really well. They controlled the ball.
It wasn't a high-scoring game, so
No.
it wasn't that the Broncos defense looked that bad or the Falcons offense looked that good, but
Which kind of leads you to believe that the Falcons actually are more in depth than this just highfalutin pass offense, you know, where they're just out there throwing the ball. I mean, 300 yards to Julio Jones the other week is just incredible.
against the Panthers, too.
Yeah.
300 yards to Julio Jones and 500 yards to Matt Ryan in general. It's the first time in NFL history that a defense has had that scored on them.
Yeah, it's like when I play Madden or something. It's not even like a real stat.
I know.
It's totally inflated. It's just ridiculous.
So the Panthers, talk about falling from grace. I mean, they lost 1 game last year, and now they've lost 4. They're sitting at 1-4 with a quarterback that's hurt and a defense that tried to say that it wasn't the defensive players, it was the scheme. So they let Josh Norman walk. But now it's like, is it really the scheme? I mean, did they make a mistake there?
Well, I mean, I heard an interview with Josh Norman earlier today, and he said,
Ha 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 ha.
no, he said, I have no idea. I'm not with that team anymore. I'm with the Redskins.
Oh,
which,
okay. So he
which
took
I
the
thought was pretty good. Yeah, he kind of
professional route. Okay.
went a route that I wasn't expecting from him. But, you know, as far as the Panthers go, they're making excuses saying that, you know, in the first couple of years that Ron Rivera was there, they went 1-3 and still made the playoffs. So they're thinking that they're not out of this right now. Cam Newton, going through concussion protocol, was just caught on the streets on a tricycle with no helmet on in the middle of traffic.
Yeah,
like, what is this guy doing? Like, it's crazy that
he's not thinking straight. He had a concussion.
That's what Hasselbeck said. He probably is right up that alley with him. But yeah, the Panthers overall they are not the Panthers of last year. And by any stretch of the imagination, with the exception of Greg Olsen, man, that guy is just
man, he's a beast.
He's incredible. He's incredible.
I was watching the game, and I was like, can you just throw the ball to Kelvin Benjamin? I was on my fantasy team, and they just weren't showing him very much love at all. It's all going to Greg Olsen. Yeah,
Olsen, like, you know how I always believe about, you know, tight ends and running backs getting the ball more when you have a backup quarterback in. Just kind of goes to prove my point. Olsen's a huge target, and he's got great hands, so he's going to catch the ball when you throw it to him. And then Kelvin Benjamin's running the sidelines, which are more dangerous passes for, you know, a backup quarterback. And dropping the ball on top of that.
Yeah, I was wanting to pull my hair out with that game last night. But speaking of tight ends getting a lot of attention from backup quarterbacks or rookie quarterbacks, Jason Witten from the Cowboys, that's another rookie quarterback situation, and the Cowboys are looking pretty good.
As much as it pains me to say it, the Cowboys are looking very, very good. They have a great offense. They have a great defense. I thought that, you know, with how much youth they have on their team, that they wouldn't be able to perform like they are currently. You know, you're talking about a rookie running back and a mid-round rookie quarterback that are actually playing better than the Cowboys were playing before they had these guys. I mean, you got Ezekiel Elliott leading the league in rushing yards. He's getting some more touchdowns as well, which is impressive. And then Dak Prescott, I guess, you know, he's been doing more than just game managing, which is what you expect from a younger quarterback. He's actually been performing in clutch situations, which is impressive to me. And like
Very
I was saying,
impressive.
the other day, he's got a whole nother element to his game that he hasn't really been let loose on. So the guy can run the ball. He's huge. He's a monster. So he can just take the ball with
He's on
whichever
pace
way he
for
wants to.
2,000 yards this year right now. So
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive for a rookie.
Very,
running back.
very good. Yeah. The question really is what are they going to do when Tony Romo comes back? They're saying Romo's going to be the starter, but in actuality, what does it hurt to say Romo's going to be the starter? Whether Dak is the starter when he comes back or whether Romo goes in, because Romo might last a game and a half after he gets back before he shatters another bone in his body and gets led into early retirement.
I agree. I think they should keep Dak in, but
They should trade Romo to the Browns. They can get like everything for him.
right, like the next first-round picks for the next 9 years.
Yeah.
maybe.
Just
I
ask for the
bet.
first-round pick for the next foreseeable future. It'll be perfect.
So who are your top teams going into the season at this point? Top 5 teams.
Top 5 teams. I got to put the Patriots at the number 1 spot. Patriots without Brady were very good. Now they got Brady back, so I'm going to put them number 1 overall. And they've been perennially in the top and going to the playoffs and winning the AFC, and they look good. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks, not just because I'm a fan, because they have the combination of the good offense and the good defense. Their defense has been coming on strong and playing better than most defenses in the league, which is impressive. They're like the Super Bowl champion defense is what it looks like to me from the Seahawks. In 3rd place, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, without a lot of players, they're still maintaining their performance. They got a great defense and they're winning. They're 5-0. What can you say about that?
Can't stop them.
And then probably, I don't know, the Eagles maybe.
Yeah,
The
I can
Eagles have
see
been
that.
very impressive, but they're young, so it's hard to say because they could falter easily. And then the Steelers also look really good. So
There's a couple teams I don't really like in there, but I can't fault you for those teams. So I'd have to agree with you there. Anyone that you should actually, I don't think we have any time left in this segment, so we'll leave that for next week. But thank you, Ray. Great discussion, as always. And when we come back, even more football to discuss. Michael will be here with us to go over all the highs and lows of this week's college matchups. Don't go away, because your team could be in the hot seat. We are back, and so is our guest, Michael Buchanan. Thanks for being back with us, Michael. I know you and Ray want to dive right into the topic with no time wasted, so let's get right to it. Pac-12, Huskies, is the nation taking notice?
Absolutely, the nation's taking notice. I mean, the polls alone will tell you that the nation's taking notice. If you look, they're currently ranked number 5 in the Associated Press poll, as well as the coaches poll. 2 dominating wins, one over a overrated Stanford team and one over a team from down south on the other side of the Columbia River that we don't care too much about in Oregon, has put them on the scene.
How do you really feel?
Well, they have, the Fighting Phil Knights are always good, but nonetheless, they've definitely taken notice. And the way they've gone about it is the key. A dominating defense that's been coined death row, an offense with Jake Browning, who's in top 5 in most people Heisman's brackets, the return of John Ross in the return game, Dante Pettis stepping up, even with Chico McClatcher being out last week. The offensive defensive line, though, is where it starts and where it ends, and that has been a marvelous thing for us.
absolutely. I think that Washington, if they're not taking notice, they better. Because this team is for real. They're a legit contender for the NCAA championship, for national champions. That's all there is to it. Then I think it's the defense that really starts it off. But their offense has come along so far this season. Like he was saying with Jake Browning, I mean, you're talking about a guy that is easily a candidate for Heisman. I don't know that he's on a lot of record, on a lot of people's notice for that yet this season. They really just started this week with that after his 8 touchdown performance total
I would
in
think
Oregon.
that McCaffrey, is that his name, the running back from Stanford?
He should be removed from the list.
I think he is.
After,
so I think he's.
Yeah, but he
mean-
should have won it last year.
Yeah, he definitely could have won it last year. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, McCaffrey has been underperforming the last few games for sure against us, against WSU. I mean,
Stanford in general has been underperforming. Wouldn't you guys agree? But does that hurt the Huskies that we beat them and that kind of is what catapulted us to the number 5 spot? Or is that just all?
I think personally we should have been up in the same category as Stanford before the game. every single week we were moving back, even though we were winning games, which is something that you don't see a lot unless you're in the Pac-12 conference, which is completely the media is biased against our division. I think personally, they have been since I've been alive. Basically, they haven't.
It's a long time.
So at least a little bit of time. I think that Washington is deservedly in the 5th spot. I'm actually surprised that they weren't overtaken by Texas A&M after a big win. They're a dangerous team as well. I think that Washington overall will have an opportunity if WSU can still continue to win. If we can beat them in the Apple Cup decisively, we may be able to even get into the playoffs for the national championship.
I believe if the Huskies win out, they're in the college playoff. Period. If they win out and win the Pac-12 championship, they're in it. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Especially with the Houston loss, you couple that in. So now you're looking at all Power 5 conferences. The committee loves champions. Okay, so you look at the Big 12 that's fallen off. Baylor and Oklahoma State, Oklahoma maybe, but they don't have a championship game. So you look at take away the Power 5, take out the Big 12, and just go with the conferences that have championship games. Huskies win out, they're in.
What about Stanford last year? Shouldn't they have made the playoffs?
They lost though. They lost the game.
But there was other teams with one loss that were in the playoffs.
Pac-12. They're from SEC and Big Ten.
Honestly, I think that Stanford would have easily contended for the championship last year if they would have had an opportunity to be in the playoffs, but they weren't.
I concur.
They should expand the playoffs. They basically made it so that they can only put in the teams that they want to put in. You know, your Alabama, usually like an LSU or Clemson's up there. These teams are they're every year they're in the same category for winning the national championship. And other teams, you know, if the Pac-12 has this much competition in it, they must be good. You know, I mean, sure, WSU lost to Eastern. I mean, but Eastern Washington wins national championships in their division.
They
it
beat
is what
Oregon
it is.
the year before, or 2 years ago, and almost beat us last year.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Eastern's a good team.
I think that the Pac-12 is overlooked nationally, but I think that this year is a really good opportunity for Washington to be able to get back and make purple rain again.
I love it. I mean, I'm a big Husky fan, so I think it's great that we're getting recognized by the nation. But like you were saying, there are other dominant teams that always seem to take the eyes of the nation away from the Huskies, like Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan beat Rutgers 78-0. I mean, is there a mercy rule in college? Like, should there be? Like, that's kind of degrading.
You know, it's one of those things, and it's going to be one of the few times I will ever agree with Jim Harbaugh on anything. And he said, I'm not going to run up the score, but if I'm putting in my second and third stringers and they're going out and playing hard and you can't stop them, that's not my problem.
That's true.
And I'm not going to knock that the least bit. I don't like the guy too much, but like you said earlier, he can coach, he wins everywhere, but he's got a point.
Yeah.
That's similar, you know, the Huskies put in their second and third stringers too, and they didn't put their foot on the gas, but they were still doing it. Yeah. So they couldn't help.
That's great.
Well, Oregon's defense, I mean, it's pillow soft.
Yeah, Oregon's defense is not good.
It's just porous.
Look at what Colorado did to them.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado though.
Did they just lose too?
Yeah, they lost to SC. And they were ranked 21 in the nation, and actually a lot of people were picking them to be the Pac-12 South champion.
I had myself.
I personally did too. I watched them beat Oregon, and this is the first loss that Oregon took in the season, and I thought that for sure that they were a contender for the South Division.
One thing you have to remember about the college football playoffs too is they still consider the RPI. So what's nice when it comes back to University of Washington is we play USC, but we don't play Colorado. So that USC victory actually will propel us when USC comes here November 12th.
And we beat them, right?
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
Exactly. Which is, in college football, it's completely different than NFL.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have your own divisions and champions, and they're smaller, so you can get your way into the playoffs.
So if you guys say that Huskies win out and they make the playoffs, what team do you predict would not make the playoffs then? Because right now it would be Alabama, Ohio, Clemson, and Michigan in the playoffs.
I personally don't agree. I think that if they win out and either of these teams don't win out, if Washington State doesn't also win out from here and we have that big Pac-12 championship game where we take on a nationally ranked team, we aren't going to be able to get that spot. We aren't going to be able to move up there. I think that if those four teams you mentioned continue and don't lose,
that's not possible. Ohio State plays Michigan.
So one of them has to lose.
Either way.
So you're going to take a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan out of the Big 12
over
a Pac-12 champion.
It's happened before.
It may have happened before, but I'm asking about this year.
I mean, I
Especially
personally,
in consideration of
I'm
the
a
power
Huskies
of the
fan,
conference.
and I'd love to see the Huskies win the national championship, or at least be able to play for it.
Yeah,
But
me
at this
too.
point, you know, these teams are just so dominant, and they're all, like I said, they're the teams that make that kind of thing. They don't really allow other teams to get into it.
Okay, so
Fair enough.
my question was who would they take their place? So Ohio State plays Michigan. I'm asking you guys both right now. I'm putting you on the spot. Who's winning that game?
Okay. If Ohio State plays Michigan
Yeah,
right now,
Yeah.
or in a few weeks,
in a few
when
weeks.
the actual
Who's
game
winning?
happens,
Yeah, who's gonna win that game?
Ohio State will win that football game.
I take Michigan.
Yeah.
Man,
All
I
right.
take
Well,
Michigan,
okay. When we
just
come back
based
and
on
do another
coaching.
episode,
And
we're gonna
it's a tough
we're gonna have to
one.
see. You took Michigan.
It's just one of those
You
games.
took
took
Michigan.
Michigan.
You took Ohio
yeah,
State.
It's
I
a coin flip, really.
All right. Dinner for whoever loses this bet. I'm making this
He's
a
gonna
bet.
owe
You
me
guys are
extra
not.
dinners? I mean, that's crazy.
Let's just stack it up.
I'll get you 2 number 3s.
Just give me the family meal; it'll be fine.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting moving forward with the entire conference, or the entire NCAA Division I. It's finally something that us Husky fans can talk about and get excited about. Even Cougars fans can get excited about this right now.
Well, hey,
You
I'm
know?
rooting for the Cougars because I want that
Exactly.
matchup. I want that.
If we don't
I
get
hate to
that
say it,
matchup,
but
we might not be able to make the.
I still disagree with that
playoffs.
point. I still disagree with that point.
I'm on his side.
But
though.
the
I
Cougars, we still want them to be good at the end of the road.
Exactly. We want that to be interesting. so.
Especially when we get to go to 35,000 seat Martin Stadium and just walk them out the door.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I promise to give you the best mediocre fantasy football advice around. It just may help you raise that trophy at the end of the season. Don't go anywhere.
We are back, and as promised, I'm going to hand you right over to Ray to close out our show with his segment he likes to call Stardom Sit-em with Ray Lana. But for a more in-depth look into your fantasy football, make sure to check out our very own podcast posted weekly, where me and Ray dive into your Q&As and go over each team's matchups for the week to come. But now, here's Ray.
This is a quick list of my favorites to start this week, followed by who should take a place on your bench. I'm not going to cover the obvious starts such as Brady, Rodgers, Antonio Brown. Those are must starts no matter the matchup. I'm going to go over the players you may be on the fence about. First up, we have the quarterbacks. We got Marcus Mariota as my first guy that you should be starting. He's looking like he's primed to have a good start this week. He's got a good matchup for him, and he had a great last week. Alex Smith is also going to be a guy that you can put in. He's going to perform well this week. And Carson Palmer, I also recommend Carson Palmer because he's back, and he's got all the offense of weapons on his team. So I think that you can put him in if he's been on your bench, or if you're kind of on the fence about him coming back. He'll be a good start for you. Next, we have running backs. Christine Michael is poised to have another good game. He's been on a streak lately. The Seahawks are coming off of a bye, so any kind of dents or dings he's been facing, he's obviously going to be okay with that. Next up, we have Cameron Artis-Payne, who scored 2 touchdowns last week. They're going against a soft run defense this week, and I think that they're going to be able to perform well. He doesn't have a lot of competition at running back with Stewart out, so we'll see how it goes. Ryan Matthews is back from injury. He's playing better. Last week was very good. I can completely see him running for like 110 yards and maybe a touchdown. So you can put him in, feel pretty confident about him. Finally, we have wide receivers. Rashard Matthews is going to have a pretty good week. He's against a soft defense as well. Kenny Britt might have a good week, and also Michael Floyd. And now for those players you should keep far away from any starting lineup if you want to keep your season on the right track. Quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, he's going to have a very tough matchup this week going against the Broncos defense. Most quarterbacks haven't had a lot of good luck with him, although he had a good week last week. Andrew Luck is going to have a tough matchup as well. I don't see him putting up too big of numbers. On the running back front, we have Matt Forte, who's been underperforming all season. Todd Gurley, who just recently got his first touchdown of the year, who's been underperforming. Even though you spent a high draft pick on this guy, I think it's safe to go ahead and put him on the bench unless you have nobody else for that position. Matt Jones is also another guy. Redskins have a tough defense this week. Finally, any 49ers receiver, and probably Golden Tate. And that has been Stardom and Sit-em with Ray Lana. Next week, I'll be running a Sportsline special with 30 minutes of strictly fantasy football talk for all of your fantasy football freaks out there. Until then, remember, we are the show always chasing the top sports stories in the league to keep you, our viewers, in the know of what's calling our line the Sports Line. See you again.